Sevhead Creative at sevhead.com presents the audio web series Epyphany, Born from the Sea, written and produced by Don Sev Severance and narrated by Professor Proteus. Episode 9, Chapter 22, New Mission. Exhausted, Blyss slept for a full day. 2 days later, fully recovered from her intense out-of-body experience, she began planning her next move. Unsure how soon Thoreau would regain his memories of Ujjayi, she was certain immediate action was needed to combat those industries most responsible for the relentless devastation of the ocean's fragile ecosystems. The Gold Tower, a mystical source of knowledge, was now a powerful tool Blyss could manipulate. It provided endless data, and as she honed her abilities, she learned to conserve energy while mastering new powers. She could consistently direct beams of light, sound, or energy across great distances, disrupting small fishing operations, enough to draw some media attention, but it was time to escalate. Blyss identified her target, the Silver Fin, the first in a fleet of Scandinavian super-factory ships. This 600-foot trawler freezer processed 500 tons of fish per day, carried 4,500 tons of fuel, and stored 10,000 tons of catch. Currently, it was ravaging waters off the coast of Mumbai, India. The Silver Fin was the worst offender in the deep-sea bottom trawling industry, the most destructive of fishing methods, decimating fish stocks and annihilating the seabed. It wastes up to 60% of the catch, killing non-target species and creating sediment plumes that cloud the water, disrupt ecosystems, and stir up pollutants. A single trawl can destroy up to 25% of a seabed area's life, devastating the future of the food supply. Despite its size, the Silver Fin was highly automated with a small, inexperienced crew. Blyss believed that with careful planning, she and the tribe could sabotage the operation. Summoning Epyphany and the tribe, Blyss outlined her plan. Our first victory was fortunate, but now we have the advantage of surprise. The Silver Fin, the largest ocean-going vessel ever constructed, is essentially a giant floating robot. Its operations depend on computers, and I'm confident I can disrupt key systems and confuse the crew. In the water, you'll work as before. Epyphany, without the burden of long-distance communication, will assess and act on my interference. We must be ready to adapt. If we can disrupt their workflow, that's a win. If we can disable them and free the catch, it's a complete victory. Chapter 23, Dreams or Memories. Days after his acrimonious split from Sajah, Thoreau stood at the bow of his beloved Samudra Hantu. The warm wind embraced him as Samu skimmed across the smooth waters of Puget Sound, heading for the open sea. He had charted a leisurely course, a stop in Hawaii, perhaps New Zealand, around Australia, sometime in Bali, and exploration of the Indian Ocean. Strangely, he felt a strong pull towards the Maldives and the Indian coast, where he had once made friends in Mumbai's vibrant Bollywood scene. Haunting dreams of beautiful islands and 3 mysterious women filled his nights. The most captivating was a mermaid, an enchanting creature. As his journey continued, Thoreau's connection to these dreams deepened, blurring the line between memory and fantasy. A few weeks into his voyage, Samu notified Thoreau that his name and Pisces Corp had been linked in a news bulletin. Sajah had briefly spoken of troubles with their fleet and how Pisces was grappling with mysterious disruptions to their ship's communication and navigation systems. Rumors were circulating pointing to GORU. Thoreau was stunned to hear his own name linked to an alleged plot against the company. Could Sajah be framing him? The thought of returning to clear his name was repulsive, but his main concern was Goru's reputation. He decided to ignore the story temporarily and stay the course. As the days passed, Thoreau felt an increasing urgency to reach the Indian Ocean. The island in his dreams grew more familiar, its inhabitants more like old friends, and the mermaid, shaman, and statue more real than ever. With this growing sense of purpose, Thoreau revised his plans. Straight to Indonesia, a brief stop in Bali, then onward to the Maldives. In all his years of travel, Thoreau had never set foot in Bali. Upon arrival, he rented a scooter and spent the first few days exploring the coastal cities. The island resembled the one in his dreams, encircled by coral reefs. White sand beaches lined the south, while black sand covered the north and west. Thoreau hiked Bali's highest mountain and unwound in the natural hot springs at its base, entertained by the attentions of local women. After relaxing a while by the coast, Thoreau ventured inland to Ubud, Bali's cultural heart. The town's vibrant energy reignited his long-neglected creative side. Ubud was alive with talented artists, painters, sculptors, musicians, and dancers, practicing their crafts around every corner. Thoreau rented a bungalow in a family compound near Ubud's center. His hosts, artists, and musicians themselves bridged the language gap with their shared passion for art. A young woman who served him breakfast daily became his guide, leading him to the studios of other local creators. Thoreau admired their simple, elegant homes and the unburdened, creative lives they led. Their art, often made for joy rather than profit, inspired him as he wandered the town, tapping his feet to the island rhythm. Bali's people, friendly and spiritual, would often pause their labor spontaneously to prepare for a parade, seamlessly integrating work, play, and worship into their daily lives. Despite his growing love for Bali, Thoreau felt a persistent unease. A strange melody haunted his thoughts. Knowing he had to solve this mystery, he reluctantly decided to continue his journey. On his last night in Bali, the sweet smells of incense, ganja, and the sound of competing gamelan ensembles filled the air as Thoreau made his way back to the Samudra Hantu. Bali was so much like his dream, he could have easily made it his home, but something was calling him to the Indian Ocean. Thoreau's weeks on Bali were more than just a relaxing vacation. They opened his eyes and his heart. His view of life had expanded, his peripheral view seemed wider, and he felt a cleansing of the soul, a spiritual rejuvenation. When Thoreau left Bali, he brought its essential lessons with him. He approached the Samudra Hantu, eager to resume his quest. The moment he stepped on deck, he thought he heard something. Thoreau stopped and listened. It was his heart. It seemed louder. He smiled, then continued to the control room and gave the order to depart. Chapter 24. Hearts Beating. Back on Ujjayi, the time for action had arrived. The days of planning, discussion, and waiting were over. Blyss retired to the cavern temple where she lay resting at the foot of the chrysalis. Meanwhile, the tribe gathered at the lagoon, and Epyphany took a few precious moments for solitary meditation at the chancel. With her mind and body in harmony, she opened her eyes. She took a deep breath and was about to slip into the water when she heard a sound. Epyphany stopped and listened. It was her heart pounding in her chest, not faster, just louder. The sensation filled her with a sense of power. She slid into the surf, joining the tribe as they made their way into the bay. They were ready to confront the monstrous floating machine. Sajah felt like a ticking time bomb ready to explode. Since the day she walked out on Thoreau, her life had been in constant turmoil. The board was furious over his rejection of their offer, especially after her glowing recommendation. Now they viewed him as the enemy. Sajah could be a cold-blooded adversary, but despite her harsh words to Thoreau, she didn't want to make him an enemy. Yet to maintain her standing in the company, she would be forced to sacrifice his reputation. At first, she wasn't sure how to accomplish this. Thoreau had a long list of powerful supporters and was known throughout the business and political worlds as incorruptible. Coincidentally, within weeks of his departure, reports of several mysterious incidents of sabotage had surfaced. It was well known that Thoreau and his companies held many cutting-edge patents, some related to advanced naval technologies. By leaking his refusal to join a well-funded environmental project, his mysterious disappearance, and the timing of the sabotage incidents, it would conveniently cast suspicion on both Thoreau and Guru, without making a direct accusation. She proceeded to set the rumor mill in motion. Then, in desperate need of solitude and sleep, Sajah headed home. Arriving at her penthouse completely spent, she knew she should eat, but a hot bath seemed more appealing. Sajah kicked off her high heels, stepped behind the bar, grabbed the nearest bottle, filled a snifter, and dragged herself to the bathroom. She started the bath water. Then, leaning heavily against the marble sink, she tipped her glass and gulped down the contents like medicine. It was Thoreau's favorite rum. She laughed, but her laughter quickly turned to sobs. In a fit of rage, she hurled the glass across the tiled space. It shattered against a delicate ceramic vase depicting a giant squid, eerily reminiscent of the Pisces logo. In a trance, Sajah stepped into the bath. A loud thumping filled her head as she sat up straight, confused. "It's my heart. My heart is so loud." Trembling with fear, Sajah eventually fell asleep in the steaming water, still fully clothed. Chapter 25. On Course. Thoreau felt a profound shift. His time in Bali had impacted him more deeply than he ever anticipated. Immersed in a culture that effortlessly balanced productivity and leisure, where the lines between work and play blurred seamlessly, he found a way of life he longed to emulate. With Samu managing the journey's logistics, Thoreau finally had the freedom to reflect. He decided to unwind in his recording studio. After spending a few hours reacquainting himself with his setup, exploring his extensive sound library and experimenting with loops, inspiration struck. He began blending Balinese rhythms and traditional Indonesian instruments with early 80s funk, crafting a basic mix. Then, recalling the intoxicating melody that had haunted his dreams, he layered additional lead guitar tracks, using his guitar synth and various sampled instruments. For the next few days, he meticulously added tracks and fine-tuned the arrangement until he was satisfied with a new composition. With the first mix complete, Thoreau realized he had completely lost track of time. His ears were fried from hours of intense listening. Shutting down the studio, he headed to the moonlit upper deck. Watching the stars as Samu sliced through gentle waves, he noticed a persistent ringing in his ears. Initially, he dismissed it as a residual effect from the studio, but the ringing grew louder. It wasn't just in his ears, it was in his mind. The sound quickly morphed into an image. Suddenly disoriented, he grabbed the railing. The image was elusive, like an impressionist painting. He closed his eyes, trying to focus, his body shaking with the intensity of it. His mind's eye sharpened and a memory flickered to life. He was sitting before a wise woman. She spoke. "If you can suspend disbelief, you will be rewarded with a key." Then, The choice is yours. Will you open the gate to the world of mystery that surrounds you? With her words, a flood of memories surged. Those magical days on Ujjayi, the cavern, Chrysalis, Blyss, the tribe, and finally, painfully yet joyfully, the memory of Epyphany. He had been in love with a real mermaid. The vibration in his head grew unbearable. Then, in an instant, silence. The sound transformed into a message. He remembered the language. He could hear the tribe. They were in trouble. The message was unclear, but one thing was certain. It was a distress signal. We thank you for listening to another installment of this series. There are many more chapters to come, so we hope you subscribe and hit the bell so you can continue to join Epyphany and her tribe as they navigate the stormy seas into the transition.